Is an extension coming for Mavericks head coach Jason Kidd? That is the rumor here on Mavericks Today by Chat Sports, as the Mavericks are expected to give Kidd an extension before the season begins. The New York Knicks did just hire Mike Brown as their next head coach, so there are now no coach openings in the NBA. Kidd was obviously tapped as a potential candidate to replace Tom Thibodeau, who the Knicks fired, but he ends up staying in Dallas, and it sounds like the Mavericks are going to reward his loyalty with another extension. The Mavs did extend Kidd last summer, too. After their run to the 2024 NBA Finals, they tacked on, I want to say it was another 2 years left on his deal. I imagine this one is going to be a 1-year extension with another raise. And look, Kidd did for my money, I think Jason Kidd did a great job last season, given all of the circumstances and how the team stayed together after the trade and how they fought like hell, even though they were shorthanded on the majority of nights, and they fought to get themselves back in the play-in, and Kidd really kept this squad together, and I do think he did a great job. But I'm not sure they need to extend Jason Kidd again. He does have those 2 years left on his contract, like I mentioned, and is already paid in the top 10 of NBA coaches here in the league. So I don't know if there's a necessity to hire or to extend Jason Kidd, but there's a couple of thoughts and kind of reasonings behind this. So let's get into those here as well. Why should they extend Kidd? I think with the Knicks hiring Mike Brown as head coach, really doesn't have any leverage anymore. Like if the Mavericks said, no, we're just not going to extend you, and we're going to let at least this season play out because you do have 2 years left on his contract. If they got to next summer with 1 year left remaining on his deal, Kidd would have even more leverage, especially with the other coach openings that will happen next season. So I think the Mavericks just wanted to avoid this situation altogether, where Kidd would be in the final year of his deal, has no extension, and has options as far as going somewhere else to be a head coach. So the Mavs are going to get this deal done here, and then they're going to proceed with Kidd as their head coach. So that is kind of where we stand right now. Kidd going to be the Mavericks head coach next year, as Nico Harrison said in the press conference, and the Mavs just want to avoid this situation altogether. So rate Jason Kidd as a head coach for me down in the comment section. A, B, C, D, or F. Or excuse me, I'm stupid. Scale it 1 to 100 down in the comment section. I was getting distracted there. But scale it from 1 to 100 down in the comment section. Rate Jason Kidd as a coach. If you think he's the best coach in the NBA, go ahead and scale it 100. If you think he's the worst coach to ever exist, put 1 down there in the comments. All right, we got to talk about this whole scenario here. And it's kind of strange, to be honest with you. Mark Cuban went out of his way to defend Nico Harrison during the Cooper Flag introductory press conference. They had the press conference over there at the Mavericks practice facility, and Cuban was present. And Cuban talked to reporters and media after and pretty fiercely defended Nico Harrison and the job that he has done as general manager of the Dallas Mavericks. So let's get into what Cuban had to say, and then we'll react to it. Here's what Cuban said. Where I'll really give Nico and the front office credit is you look at a lot of the teams right now, they're blowing up their team. They're dropping bombs on their teams because of the second apron. We've got our guys locked up, and with the way the cap is going to move, we should be in really good shape. Nico and Kyrie have a strong enough relationship that they were able to work together to give us a little more wiggle room to have somebody to fit in when Kyrie is out. Kyrie took a little less money so the Mavs could have that full taxpayer mid-level. So, and this is the part that really got me thinking. So for all of the hell that Nico has been getting, he's done a really good job. That's what Cuban said. I was like, interesting. Why is Mark Cuban going out of his way to defend Nico Harrison, someone he knows is probably the least liked man in the city of Dallas, whether it be sports, whether it be whatever? Makes you think why Cuban is defending him. I think there's a few reasons why Cuban is going out of his way to do this. Number one, Cuban hired Nico, so it is sort of a reflection on him. When Cubes fired Donnie Nelson and let Rick Carlisle go, he did hire Nico Harrison to run basketball operations. Number two, I think he wants the fans to focus on the team, and I do think that's a valid point because, yeah, the front office and the business side of the Mavericks is in absolute disarray right now, and there's basically nothing going right there. Except the Mavs are going to put a pretty good team out there on the court this next season, and Cuban really wants the focus to be on that and be on the positives that are surrounding this organization. Cooper Flag, obviously a fantastic positive. Is that Nico Harrison's doing? No, the Mavericks won the lottery, but the other pieces around him, you do have to give him some sort of credit. That is, Nico did bring in those guys, and he has molded this team into what he thinks is the championship contending team. And I think this team's going to be pretty good as well for what it's worth. But the third one, there's a theory that I want to discuss. Is Mark Cuban back involved with the Dallas Mavericks? We'll talk about that here in just a moment. But before we do that, go get your Cooper Flag jersey right now. The jersey for the number 1 overall pick in the 2025 NBA draft is available courtesy of our friends at Fanatics. When you go to chatsports.com/flag, you can get hooked up with either a blue one, a white one. They got the navy blue as well, all sizes, colors available. When you use that link, chatsports.com/flag, Fanatics sends us a part of the proceeds, so you're helping out the channel while getting yourself a Cooper Flag jersey. Go get yours before they run out. It's chatsports.com/flag. That link will be in the comments and the description of today's show. All right, so my kind of thinking here is, so we barely heard from Mark Cuban since he sold the Mavericks in December of 2023. He's been present at home games. He no longer traveled on the road. Is he stepping back into the picture with the Mavericks basketball operations, and that's why he was coming out to defend Nico to try to just take the heat off him a little bit? Nico ran the Mavericks after Cuban sold it with 0 checks and balances. He was the judge, he was the jury, he was the executioner. That's why the Mavericks training staff got fired. That's why everyone surrounding Luka and his circle basically got fired. That's why everyone that Nico Harrison didn't like got fired and is no longer with the organization. There was no one to be like, hey, I don't know if we should do this. We need to take a second look at this, or we need to maybe approach this with a different point of view. There was no one to do that for Nico Harrison. And now, with Cuban's potentially stepping back into the fold, there's someone that he can not run decisions by, but take into consideration a different point of view. And I do think that Patrick Dumont feels burned by the whole situation that happened with the Luka trade and with everything else. Is like, he implicitly trusted Nico Harrison to do a job to act in the best interest of the Dallas Mavericks, and it was clear that Nico did not do that. Dumont realized it. He's like, oh shit, like, this was a pretty big mistake. I think we need someone on the ground in Dallas, because Dumont is not going to be in Dallas. He's like, I think we need someone on the ground in Dallas to go kind of be Nico's checks and balances, sort of, so to speak, and make sure that he's just not going willy-nilly and doing things all himself. And look, I think Nico is still in charge, but now there's someone here to help him make decisions. And this even includes the Cooper Flag scenario, where I think Nico, before he even had the chance to say, I want to select Cooper Flag, I believe that Patrick Dumont and the ownership group got together and told Nico, you are taking Cooper Flag. You are not thinking about this. This is the guy you are taking. Plain, simple, point blank, period, end of story. And the Patrick Dumont angle of this thing is kind of this. He had no idea what he was buying when he bought the Dallas Mavericks. That much is pretty clear. 18 months later, they did not know how a basketball team operates. You saw the podcast with Mike Marshall the other day. If you haven't, go check out the Dumb Zone. They do great work over there as well. And you saw what he said about how the team is being run. You saw, you've seen countless times where this team has shown its ineptitude off the basketball court. And bringing Mark Cuban in, number one, it brings a sort of credibility back to this front office where Mark knows how to run the team and knows what it takes to run a professional sports team because he did it for 23 years. So Dumont leaning more on Cuban to help out Nico Harrison, help him drive this ship, help him be the right messenger to the fans as well, is a big thing. And I do think Cuban is going to act as sort of a spokesman going forward, because every time Nico Harrison opens his mouth, whether he has good intentions or not, he says something stupid and pisses people off. And that is just the truth of the matter. So I'm thinking that Patrick Dumont is thinking to get Cuban back involved, at least in a smaller capacity, in order to help Nico Harrison through the things that he needs help with. So I think Cubes is back involved in some capacity a little bit. What that is, I don't know. How it looks, I don't know. But I do think it's a good thing that Mark Cuban is back involved with the Dallas Mavericks in whatever capacity that may be. Do you want Mark Cuban back with the Mavs? Type Y for yes or type N for no. Let me know down there in the comment section what you think about Mark Cuban joining the Mavs. Like I said, I think Patrick Dumont lives in Las Vegas. He spends his time in Nevada. He didn't want to move full-time down here to Dallas. He has Mark Cuban now in his corner to act on ownership's behalf, because Mark Cuban still owns 27% of the Dallas Mavericks. So he does have a vested interest in righting the ship. And I think Cuban saw the ship was sinking a little bit, so he came to try to right that. Patrick Dumont saw the flaws in the structure that he had in place, because Dumont didn't know anything about basketball. He trusted Nico, got burned, brings Mark Cuban back into the fold, and hopefully things will stabilize a little bit off the court so they can get even better on the court. And that's where we sit right now with the Dallas Mavericks and Mark Cuban. That's going to do it for today's show, guys. Appreciate you for tuning in to Mavericks Today by Chat Sports. If the Mavs make a move, you know where to find us. It's youtube.com/MavsTV.